All right, today's video is a little bit different than what you guys are normally used to seeing. And today I'm going to be showing you guys what I'm going to be having in the bag to end the 2022 season. And let me explain a little bit why we're doing this type of video here today. So first and foremost, I've had a few people out on the course and also in the comment section ask me to do an in the bag. Typically, I don't like to do these types of videos just because, one, I'm not a pro, and I feel like for the most part, when you're an amateur player like me, what I'm throwing in the bag isn't always going to necessarily help you all the most, just because I'm still trying to figure out what's best for me in my game. But then the other main reason that I'm making this type of video here today is I unfortunately cut the back of my heel open and I'm not able to throw right now. I had a ton of videos planned for this upcoming week, including taking a look at the all-new 6-time Crystal Luna and a couple other videos before I have a tournament coming up next weekend, and hopefully the back of my heel is all healed up by then, so hopefully I can play in the tournament. So today we're just going to be doing a pretty simple in the bag, taking a look and seeing all the discs that I throw out on the course that you guys see me throw in all these YouTube videos, or whether you see me out on the course. But let's jump into taking a look what I have in the bag to end the 2022 season and just give you guys a quick overview of why I'm throwing the discs that I am and what they're able to do for me. All right, before we jump into showing you all the discs that I currently have in my bag, I'm going to talk a little bit about the bag that I currently use. So the bag that I've been using for probably the past about 3 to 4 years now has been the Grip. I believe this is the BX3. This is the mid-size bag that Grip offers. I got it for Christmas one year and I have been using it ever since. I really have no complaints about this thing. You have 2 side pouches on each side of the bag here. Most of the time I'm carrying a lot of camera gear in here. You really can't go wrong with a Grip bag. If you're looking to upgrade your bag, I would definitely suggest checking out a Grip BX3 or any of the other types of bags that they offer. This isn't sponsored by Grip. I just really enjoy the product that they're putting out. All right, let's jump into all the discs that I'm currently carrying to end the 2022 season. I have one more tournament left this year and the bag is pretty much dialed into what it's been for probably the past couple weeks now. So let's talk a little bit about the putters first. So my go-to putting putter right now is going to be the CT Luna. We switched over probably about a month ago from CT Focuses. Wanted to change things up on the green. I wasn't feeling as comfortable as I had in the past with the Focuses, so I changed over to the Lunas. And the reason for the CT plastic or the Crazy Tough plastic is because I like my putters to be a little bit on the stiffer side. I think it has an overall better feel in the hand and they last a little bit longer than the regular rubber blend that you're typically seeing people throw. All right, next up, we're going to talk a little bit about my throwing putters and my approach discs. These are some of my favorite discs to have out on the course. They're some of my favorite discs to throw probably of all time. So first up is going to be a disc that I always have in the bag, and I cycle it out of the bag in different plastics from time to time, and that's going to be a Fierce. And this one specifically is going to be in the Z Swirl plastic. This disc for me is really just a dead straight flyer. You can put a lot of power into this thing. As opposed to other Fierces, this holds up to that torque and that power that you put into it off the tee or for approach shots. In this Z Swirl plastic, this is probably one of my favorite runs since the 2020 Big Z Fierce. Next up, we have my go-to approach disc. This is my approach disc for literally probably, I would say 90% of the shots that I'm throwing towards the basket where I want something to just stick on the ground, and it's going to be the Soft Luna. This was a very limited run specifically with the Paul McBeth logo here. I believe I picked this up over at AM Nationals when it was being played over at Toboggan. They just randomly had a stack of these. This thing is so good. It has a slight puddle top to it. It has a nice grippy feel to it, so when you're throwing it for that approach shot, it's just gonna stick right to the green and not have too much play action on the ground. And this thing is insanely soft, especially in the summertime when it's like 90+ degrees outside. This thing, you can literally fold it like a pancake. I actually didn't plan on throwing this thing, but I started to mess around with it and it's stuck in the bag ever since. Next up is a disc that I am super excited about. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to throw it yet, but it's gonna go straight in the bag because I've loved this run in the past. It's gonna be the brand new 6x Crystal Luna. And the Crystal Luna has been by far one of my favorite Lunas to throw off the tee or for approach shots. And one thing that I noticed about this 6x Crystal Luna is it's a little bit on the stiffer side than the 5x. So I'm excited to see what type of stability that this thing has. All right, next up is going to be my go-to throwing putters off the tee right now. And those are going to be Challengers. I have 2 different Challengers in the bag right now. One being the Putterline Challenger. This one has been my go-to throwing putter off the tee. This thing handles a little bit more torque than my Lunas do. and I can just throw these things basically as hard as I want off the tee, and they're just going to flip up to flat and have a nice straight pushing flight to them with a little bit of stability at the end. I'm hoping that this putter line plastic one just turns into pretty much just a dead straight flyer that can handle the torque that I put into it. And as for my approach disc, right now I'm only carrying one zone in the bag, and that's going to be a Glow Z zone. Glow Z plastic is some of my favorite plastic to throw out on the course, whether it be for approach discs, mid ranges, anything like that. The Glow Z zone has been one of the most reliable runs of zones. This one specifically, I believe I got this one from Disc Golf Bra for like $18. I got an absolute steal on this thing, and I primarily just use this thing for forehand approach shots, or sometimes I'll use it for hyzer type shot backhands, and I can't say enough good things about having a good staple type of zone in your bag. Next up in the bag are going to be the mid-ranges. I only carry about 4 mid-ranges right now, just because these 4 specifically are just so reliable that I don't really need to carry anything more than this. First up are going to be my buzzes, and the first one that I have is going to be the 4x claw buzz. This one has been a staple in my bag for many, many years. The one thing that I will say about this buzz though is it's a little bit stiffer, whereas I've felt other 4x buzzes before and they have a little bit more gumminess to it. So this thing is actually more of a stable run of the 4x buzz. For me, this thing doesn't really flip up all that much. It just has a nice pushing hyzer to it. Really looking to get my hands on more of these and hopefully find some that are a little less stable than this one. And then the other buzz that I have in my bag, I believe this is a second run buzz, and I got this one specifically from a disc golf store down in Nashville for, I think this one was like $12. So this buzz specifically is a flip up to flat, pretty much just ride dead straight and not have too much fade towards the end. So these two buzzes specifically really complement each other really well in my bag. Next up is a disc that I recently put in the bag but have thrown different types of plastics in, and that's going to be an ESP Meteor. So this run of Meteor in the ESP plastic is pretty much just a hyzer flip to straight, and it's just going to push dead straight and not have any fade towards the end. I'm really just relying on this ESP Meteor to fly dead straight. And the last mid-range that I'm gonna have in the bag is going to be the Adam Hammes Z Wasp. So this is pretty much just my go-to overstable mid-range in the bag. This thing has been so reliable over the years. I believe this is the 2019 run or 2020 run of the Tour Series from Discraft. This is one of my favorite mid-ranges to throw it on the course. It's just beat into a reliable, overstable type of mid-range, and really enjoy the feel of the Wasp in the hand. Some people don't like the bead on the bottom that it has. I think for myself and how I grip the disc, just a comfortable feel in the hand that I can rely on when I need something to end up off to the left. One thing that I've really focused on this year with my bag is trying to keep it as consistent as possible. So in the past, I've really changed things up a lot, cycled discs throughout the bag like as often as I could if something wasn't flying right, and really blaming the disc as opposed to blaming myself for not throwing them correctly. But these next two categories, being the fairways and the drivers, are going to be some of the most consistent molds that I've had throughout this entire year. These two have probably seen the least amount of change throughout the bag, as opposed to like the mids and the putters where I was kind of cycling through trying to figure things out. So for the fairway drivers, first up we have one of the best discs and one of the easiest discs that you can possibly throw, especially for a new beginner player, and that's going to be a DGA Vortex. I cannot say enough good things about the Vortex and what it's been able to offer to me out on the course, whether it be a nice hyzer flip type of shot pushing through the woods, but you can realistically throw this thing on about 60 to 70% power. It's going to flip up to flat, ride dead straight, and have a little bit of fade towards the end. If you are a new or beginner, even novice type of player, definitely check out a Vortex from DGA, because this thing is going to help your game a ton. Next up is another DGA disc, and that's going to be the Tour Series Pipeline. This has been one of my favorite fairway drivers to throw. Just has a nice straight flight to it with reliable fade. It's definitely a step up from the Vortex in stability. It takes a little bit of power to get this thing up to flat and just have that nice pushing straight flight. Specifically, this run of the Tour Series is a little bit on the gummier side. The actual profile of it, it just has a nice like slight dome to it, and when you're releasing it with the power grip like I do, it just comes out of the hand very naturally and just has that nice straight flight to it. Next up is probably one of the most anticipated discs of the year from Paul McBeth, and that's going to be the Athena. The Athena for me is definitely more of an overstable type of fairway driver. I can pretty much throw this thing at full power. It's gonna go straight for a little while, and then it's gonna have a nice reliable fade at the end. The one thing that I will say about the Athena is it does have some sneaky glide to it. The rim on the Athena has, I would say, like almost an 8 to 7.5, if that's actually a thing, type of rim to it. It does feel a little bit faster in the hand than your typical 7-speed fairway driver. Next up are my favorite forehand discs in the fairway lineup, and those are going to be a couple of different Raptors that I have in the bag. This one specifically being an ESP Raptor. This ESP one is definitely my more straight Raptor in the woods. It has that just straight initial flight with the reliable fade that the Raptor offers. And then one that I'm testing out, I got in one of the Ledgestone mystery boxes from this year, is a double stamp Crystal Raptor. I've heard that Crystal Raptors are usually on the more overstable side. This one specifically doesn't have as much stability as I would like it to, but I'm still testing it out. So this one might cycle out of the bag and have a Captain's Raptor put back in. And then the last fairway driver that I'm carrying in the bag is going to be an ESP Swirl Undertaker from Ledgestone. This is by far the best run of Undertaker that I've ever thrown. Right out of the box, a straight flight that you're looking for an Undertaker, especially with the type of golf that I'm playing, which is primarily in the woods. And I would say this has a little less fade than you're probably typically used to with Undertakers. But if you're looking for something that's just straight out of the bag, dead straight, you don't have to beat it in or anything like that, definitely check out one of the ESP Swirl Undertakers from Ledgestone. Oh, and then one that I forgot, I had it in the top pouch of the bag, just really quick, is going to be a Z-Swirl Passion. I've always thrown Passions ever since they came out. I unfortunately lost one of my prototype Passions on hole 2 out at Idlewild, and I've been looking to replace that thing ever since. I've seen Ezra and Brody throw the Z-Swirl Passion and have talked really good things about it, so I figured I'd pick one up and try it out, but I do really enjoy the look of it. It's really cool in that Z-Swirl plastic. And last but not least, guys, this is going to be the distance drivers. Like I was saying before with the fairway drivers as opposed to the mids and putters in my bag, the distance drivers have seen the least amount of change throughout this entire year. The distance drivers that I have in the bag right now are really dialed in. I know exactly what they're going to do off the tee. First up, and this can be considered a fairway driver, but it's going to be an Onyx. For me, the Onyx is more of a distance driver. For my arm speed specifically, this was given to me by my friend Chris Griffin. This one's on a little bit more on the understable side, so it has a lot straighter flight with that nice reliable fade at the end. So I'm using this thing typically on anything from about 360 to 375. Next up is probably one of the most underrated discs in all of the Discraft lineup. I know more people are starting to catch on to this one, but it's going to be the Scorch. And this one specifically is in the ESP plastic, which I find to be a little bit on the more understable side. But for my arm speed, I don't have to put too much power into this thing to get it to flip up to flat and just go. It's just the easiest disc to throw. It has so much glide with the 6 glide that it has. With it being an 11-speed disc, it has a little bit of a smaller rim than your 12-speed distance drivers, which feels a lot better in my hand. But definitely check out a Scorch if you haven't thrown one yet and you're looking to get a little bit more distance, if not a lot more distance. And next up are going to be my go-to forehand distance driver, and that is going to be a stack of Forces. I have 3 different ones. All 3 of them do 3 different things. So the first one up is going to be the newest Force that I have in the bag, and that's going to be an ESP Force. This one specifically is dyed by Pastry Dyes. This Force for me is easily the most overstable Force that I've ever thrown. I'm hoping that this thing eventually beats into be a nice like flip up to flat Force with a nice amount of fade at the end. The next one up is my workhorse Force in the bag, and that's going to be the 4-Claw Z Force. This thing, when I first picked it up, which was at Idlewild, like whenever these first came out. Shout out to Chandler Fry for selling me this thing at the Fly Mart at Idlewild. This has turned into the straight to reliable fade Force that I've been looking for. This thing just feels so comfortable in the hand. This is probably the disc that I'm reaching for the most if I'm out on the course and need something with a forehand. I'm really close to probably pushing this thing about 375 to 400 feet right now. This is just one of those discs in the bag that I gotta have and can see myself throwing for many years. And the last Force that I have in my bag, which is this Force is pretty interesting. I got this from a buddy, and it's going to be a pre-flight number ESP Force. This one specifically is from 2011, and for me, this Force specifically, if I'm throwing this thing on forehand, because I do use it for backhand as well, but if I am throwing it forehand, it will actually flip up to flat if you put it on hyzer, carry through, and then have a little bit of fade at the end. This is by far the least stable force that I have in the bag, which allows me to throw it on backhand as well. These three specifically definitely make up most of the distance driver shots that I'm looking for, which I'm super stoked about. Like I said, consistency is a big thing for me in the bag and reducing mold. So if I can find something in the bag that has a wide variety of different stabilities, then I'm definitely going to just rely on those out on the course. And then the last disc in the bag, one that I've had in the bag for a very, very long time. It's going to be a prototype Hades. This is definitely by far my farthest throwing distance driver for backhand. I never throw this thing on forehand. It's just too flippy. But for my arm speed on a backhand, this thing is just so perfect. Put it on just a slight amount of hyzer. It's going to flip up to flat, have a little bit of carryover, but it's always going to have a nice amount of stability just at the end. It does have that 12-speed rim on it, but it has a really comfortable feel in the hand because there's not too much dome on the top of the flight plate at all. This thing I'm probably pushing right around the same as the Scorch, but if I'm trying to really rip into something, I'm probably pulling this thing out as opposed to the Scorch. And that's going to wrap up the distance drivers here, and that's everything that I have in the bag right now, and really excited to get back out on the course once the back of my heel is finally healed all the way. Well guys, that is going to wrap up the in the bag for the end of the 2022 season. Like I said, this isn't typically a video that I would want to be doing. I would definitely rather be out on the course filming a course playthrough or showing you guys some of the discs that I have in the bag and actually seeing me throw them. But hopefully by next week, I'll be all healed up and be back out on the course. But if you guys did enjoy the video here today, make sure that you leave a like down below. Let me know in the comments section down below as well, what's your favorite disc that I have in the bag right now. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button because we're going to be bringing you more videos. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one.